Girls, since we didn't have class today, I'm going to just share a brief recording. Fortunately for you, this can only be 15 minutes because then I get cut off. And you can see here that I have a Word document pulled up, so I'm going to type some notes that I want you to type along with me as I talk. But before we begin, we're going to take a few minutes to do just a breathing meditation. Because who knows what you're doing right now? Or I should say, who knows what you were doing before you were listening to this recording. So just take a moment to get comfortable wherever you are and close your eyes and get settled in your body. I'm sitting in a crossed-legged position with my eyes closed. And I want you to begin to just pay attention to the sounds in whatever room you're in. I have a very loud ticking clock that I can hear. So just listen to all of the sounds and give a one-word label to name that sound. And then I want you to become aware of your breathing. Try not to control it, but just be aware of how breathing just happens automatically. You don't have to do anything. But you also have the ability to control it too. So let's begin to slow and deepen our breathing. So we're going to inhale to the count of 4, and then we're going to pause and hold our breath for 2 counts, and then we're going to exhale to the count of 6. So do that 3 times, and I'm going to do it with you. So inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, hold, 1, 2, exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 2 more times on your own. Okay, now wherever you are, shake your body a little bit. I'm shaking my crossed legs. I have my hands on my knees and I'm giving them a little shake to wake me up. And then inhale your arms up wherever you are. Exhale, lower. One more time. Inhale your arms up overhead. Exhale, lower. Great, we just did almost a 4-minute meditation. Good for you. Okay. One of your assignments from the other day was I asked you about, so the other day, last Friday, I asked you to read about the Jesus of history and the Christ of faith. And so I want to talk a little bit about that right now. So when we talk about the Jesus of history, you should put this in your notes. You can see me, I'm making my notes. I'm going to make them bigger so that you can see them. What are we talking about? And you might be thinking, well, why are we even having this conversation? But hopefully by the time we're done with it, you will have a better understanding. So when we talk about the historical Jesus, we are talking about, the person who walked and talked on this earth. He is known from scientists who have studied and looked for evidence that Jesus actually existed. Okay, these scientists have been anthropologists, archaeologists, I don't know how, I don't think I spelled that right, girls. I didn't. See, that's the great thing about spell check. Okay, so anthropologists are scientists who study humans and human history, and you can see how they would have to closely work with archaeologists who study history really through artifacts and through archaeological digs. Okay, so knowledge about Jesus has come from these two fields. It has also come from biblical sources. So there have been scientists who have studied the Bible. Again, not religious people, but scientists who have studied the Bible, who study the language and texts and the culture of Jesus's time, and could look at some of Jesus's phrases to see if it would be true that this would come from him. And then we also have I'm sorry, I've written this. These scientists have been anthropologists, archaeologists, and so I'm going to put in scientists who have studied biblical sources. There is also evidence about Jesus in historical documents written by historians known as Josephus. I never spell his name right when I first type it. Pliny the Younger, Tacitus, and there are others as well. Okay, so when we talk about the Jesus of history, it's information that we know about the real person coming from both biblical sources and non-biblical sources, that the majority of people that have any type of investment in learning about Jesus actually believe that this information is pretty good evidence that he was a real person who lived and walked on this earth. Okay? And then we have this thing called the Christ of faith. Or the person, not the thing, that we call the Christ. So when we talk about the Christ of faith, we're talking about the person who is the object of faith and worship for members of the Christian community. Oops. This Jesus is the person that is proclaimed by Christians, and how they came to understand Jesus after his death and resurrection. Yes, I know it's bolded and underlined. I know how some of you are about neatness and everything being the same. When we get into the stories about Jesus, the Gospels, we will talk about the Jesus that shows up after his resurrection. And something happened to his followers after he resurrected. They came to see him very differently than how they witnessed him when he was alive. So, So we know that this Christ of faith is different. They experienced Jesus in a new way, not that he was totally different from his earthly person, but that is sort of when the understanding of Jesus as the Son of God came to light. And he was more than just the historical Jesus. So that's the importance of understanding the Christ of faith. When he was alive, Jesus, his disciples didn't fully understand, and even after he resurrected, they didn't fully understand. That understanding has unfolded over thousands and thousands of years as more and more people have come to understand and have experienced the resurrected Jesus. So the key takeaway here is that the Jesus of history is the physical, flesh and blood person that walked on the earth. The Christ of faith is how people have interpreted, how Christians have interpreted who Jesus was, what his life meant, and how Christians experienced the resurrected Jesus. That's the Christ of faith. And that might make more sense as we get into the gospel stories, okay? So if you have any questions right now that are still lingering for you, in your notes, I want you to write them right here, like this. Because I could see this being a great question to ask you later on, for me to ask you at some point on an assessment, whether that be the March exam or something else, to get an understanding of whether you are able to articulate what's the difference between the Jesus of history and the Christ of faith. So if you have a question, because you're not able to fully understand it, write that question out here, and then you can talk to me in class on Thursday, because we drop tomorrow, okay? I'm going to give you one more recording. This is at 12 minutes, so I'm going to stop here on this topic. I'm going to give you one more recording on the different types of political and religious groups in Jesus' time, which is very important to know about before we get into reading the first gospel, okay? So you could end here and then go to the second recording. Not see you, I was going to say see you in the next recording, but you'll hear me in the next recording. Ciao.